The weight of the world felt a little lighter the moment Isabela stepped off the plane in Rome. The air, even within the sterile confines of the airport, hummed with a history she could almost taste. Back home, the demands of her architecture career, the endless deadlines, the constant pressure to build, to create, to be something specific, had left her feeling hollowed out, a mere structure herself, lacking the vibrant life she designed for others. This solo trip, a radical departure from her usual staycations born of exhaustion, was an act of quiet rebellion, a desperate search for the authentic pulse she felt she was losing. Rome, the eternal city, a place built layer upon layer over millennia, felt like the perfect canvas for rediscovering her own foundations. Her first days unfolded like a dream sketched in sepia tones and sun-drenched hues. She wandered through cobblestone streets that whispered tales of emperors and artists, tracing the lines of ancient aqueducts and the curves of Baroque fountains. Each building, each piazza, was a lesson in form and function, a masterclass in enduring beauty. She sketched in her notebook, not designs for clients, but impressions, feelings, the way the light fell on a worn stone facade, the effortless flow of people through a public space. Yet, even amidst the breathtaking beauty, there were moments of quiet solitude that bordered on loneliness, sharp reminders that she was experiencing this wonder alone. A beautiful sunset over the Tiber, a particularly moving piece of street music, moments she instinctively wanted to share, only to find no one beside her. It was a different kind of emptiness than the one she'd left behind, less draining but still present. One afternoon, seeking refuge from the midday heat and a deeper connection to the city's artistic soul, she found herself in an elegant, less touristed art gallery. The air inside was cool and hushed, filled with the silent power of centuries-old masterpieces. Isabela, an architect by profession but an artist at heart, felt a profound sense of peace here. She moved slowly from piece to piece, appreciating the brushstrokes, the play of light and shadow, the stories held within the frames. She paused before a painting that spoke to her, its composition complex, its emotional depth palpable. Lost in thought, she took out her notebook, sketching details, trying to capture the essence of its power. It was then, a subtle shift in the periphery of her vision, a feeling more than a sight, that prickled the back of her neck, a sense of being watched. She glanced up, scanning the room casually, seeing only other patrons admiring the art. Dismissing it as fancy, she returned to her sketching, but the feeling lingered, a faint, unsettling hum beneath the quiet reverence of the gallery. As dusk began to paint the Roman sky in shades of orange and rose, Isabela left the gallery. The golden light softened the edges of the ancient buildings, casting long, dancing shadows. The street was less crowded now, the daytime bustle giving way to the quieter rhythm of the evening. She started walking, intending to find a small trattoria for dinner, the beauty of the twilight initially distracting her. But the feeling from the gallery returned, stronger this time. A sense of presence behind her, a rhythm of footsteps that seemed to match her own a little too closely. She quickened her pace, her heart beginning to beat a little faster. She glanced back, a quick furtive look, and saw a man a short distance behind her. He wasn't doing anything overtly threatening, just walking, but something about his posture, the way he seemed to be keeping pace with her, sent a chill down her spine. Panic began to set in. She turned onto a wider avenue, hoping the increased traffic and presence might deter him, but he was still there, a persistent shadow. The sounds of the city, once a comforting symphony, now felt distant, muffled by the rising tide of her fear. Her breath hitched in her throat. She saw the headlights of an approaching motorcycle in the distance, growing larger, louder. It was a desperate, instinctive decision. Stepping towards the curb, she waved her arms frantically, a silent plea for help swallowed by the noise of the speeding traffic. The motorcycle, a powerful, dark machine, responded with a sharp, sudden brake, pulling over just a few feet from her. The rider, a tall, imposing figure clad in dark leather and a helmet with a dark visor, looked towards her. Even through the visor, she felt the weight of his gaze. He said something in rapid Italian, his voice deep, but carrying a tone that sounded like annoyance or impatience. Isabela, trembling, didn't understand the words, but the urgency of the situation propelled her forward. She rushed to the side of the motorcycle, pressing herself close, using the bike and the formidable figure on it as a shield, her hand shaking as she pointed back down the street at the man who had been following. He had stopped a short distance away, hesitant, clearly surprised by the motorcycle's sudden stop. Alessandro, hidden behind his helmet, took in the scene. The woman's obvious fear, the man lingering in the shadows. Annoyance at being stopped gave way to a protective instinct he hadn't anticipated. With a fluid movement, he dismounted the bike. Even on the street, in his riding gear, he was an imposing figure. He walked a few steps towards the man, his deep voice, usually calm, carrying a sharp edge as he spoke in Italian. The words were few, direct, a clear warning. The stalker, faced with Alessandro's unexpected and formidable presence, hesitated for only a moment longer before turning abruptly and hurrying away in the opposite direction, disappearing into the Roman evening. Turning back to the woman, Alessandro felt a shift. The immediate threat was gone, replaced by the lingering tension in the air. He reached up and slowly removed his helmet, revealing a handsome, sharp-jawed Italian face, his dark, almond-shaped eyes meeting hers. He saw the residual fear in her eyes, the slight tremble of her hands clasped tightly together. His expression softened almost imperceptibly from the stern focus of moments before. He spoke, not in Italian this time, but in perfectly unaccented English, his voice still deep but now calm, assessing. "Are you all right? What happened?" Isabela, relief washing over her in waves, nodded, still catching her breath. "Yes, thank you, that man. He was following me from the museum." Her voice was a little shaky. Alessandro listened, his gaze sharp as he quickly scanned the street again before focusing back on her, taking in her appearance, her obvious distress. He saw the vulnerability beneath her composed posture. He looked at his motorcycle, then back at Isabela. It was getting late, and the street, while busy with traffic, wasn't a place she should be left alone, shaken like this. He had an extra helmet, always did, a habit from a different time. He made a decision. "You're trembling," he stated, a simple observation. "It's getting late, and you shouldn't be walking alone here right now." He gestured to the spare helmet on his bike. "I can give you a ride. Where are you headed?" A moment of hesitation flickered across Isabela's face, accepting a ride from a complete stranger, even one who had just helped her. But the fear was still too fresh, and Alessandro's presence, while initially intimidating, now felt like an unexpected anchor. There was something in his calm demeanor, his steady gaze, that felt trustworthy. "My hotel," she replied, naming the general area. "Get on," he said simply, handing her the extra helmet. It felt solid and heavy in her hands, a tangible symbol of this surreal turn of events. She put it on, the world narrowing to the view through the visor. Climbing onto the back of the powerful motorcycle, she felt the warmth of the engine, the solid strength of Alessandro in front of her. As they pulled away from the curb, the speed was exhilarating, a rush of adrenaline that began to replace the fear. The iconic sights of Rome at night blurred past, ancient walls illuminated, fountains glowing, streetlights streaking. She couldn't talk over the wind and the roar of the engine, but she held on, her body pressed against his back, a strange, intense intimacy born of shared danger and unexpected rescue. The city unfolded before them in a dazzling, silent spectacle. He didn't take her directly to her hotel. Instead, he pulled over in a quiet, less-known piazza, a hidden gem away from the main tourist routes. A small, ancient fountain murmured softly in the center, surrounded by beautiful, old buildings bathed in warm, subtle light. They got off the bike, the sudden quiet a stark contrast to the roaring ride. They removed their helmets, looking at each other properly in the soft light for the first time since he'd taken his off on the street. There was an undeniable awareness between them, a spark of curiosity and attraction that had been ignited in the most unusual circumstances. "Thank you," Isabela said again, her voice steadier now, filled with genuine gratitude. "For stopping. for everything. Alessandro inclined his head slightly. You are safe now. He watched her for a moment. Following you from the museum, you said? Yes, she confirmed, recounting the feeling, the quickening footsteps, the fear. I've been traveling alone, and, well, it was unsettling. She offered a small, tired smile. This trip was supposed to be an escape, I guess, from routine, from feeling a bit lost. Alessandro listened, his expression thoughtful. He didn't offer much about himself, remaining somewhat mysterious, but his questions about her travels, about her work as an architect, were insightful. He seemed genuinely interested in her perspective, her appreciation for the city's structures and history. He commented on the beauty of the piazza, pointing out architectural details she might have missed, showing a deep connection to Rome that went beyond the surface. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences, building a bridge between two strangers brought together by chance and a moment of peril. The initial shock had faded, leaving behind a potent mix of intrigue and attraction. As the evening began to feel complete, a sense of the moment ending settled between them. Alessandro stood, looking out at the piazza, then back at her. He seemed to make a decision. Rome can be overwhelming when you're alone, he said, his voice soft, and sometimes less safe than it should be. There are places, though, parts of the city most people never see, the ones that inspire. He turned to face her fully. If you like, meet me here tomorrow evening, around the same time. I could show you a view. He let the sentence hang, an open invitation, a promise of more mystery and beauty. Isabella's heart gave a little leap. It was a bold invitation, unexpected and intriguing. It wasn't just about safety anymore, it was about connection, about the spark that had ignited between them. A sense of daring returned, the same impulse that had led her to take this solo trip in the first place. I would like that, she replied, a genuine smile now reaching her eyes. Tomorrow evening. The morning after was a blur of replayed moments. Isabela woke with the lingering sense of Alessandro's presence, the phantom weight of the helmet in her hands, the exhilarating press of his back against hers on the motorcycle. The fear of the previous night had receded, replaced by a potent cocktail of relief, curiosity, and a thrill she hadn't felt in a long time. Meeting a complete stranger, flagging him down on a busy street, accepting a ride into the Roman night, it was entirely out of character for the pragmatic, calculated architect she was back home. Yet, it felt undeniably right. The memory of his deep voice, his calm demeanor in the face of danger, and the surprising softness in his eyes when he removed his helmet, drew her in. He was a mystery. A sudden, unexpected deviation from her carefully planned escape, and the invitation to meet him again felt like stepping onto a path she hadn't known existed. All day, as she visited a small independent bookstore and lingered over coffee in a sun-drenched piazza, her thoughts kept returning to the evening ahead. Was it wise, meeting him again? What did she really know about him? Very little, but the pull was undeniable. It wasn't just gratitude, it was a genuine intrigue, a sense that he, like Rome itself, had hidden layers waiting to be discovered. As the afternoon light began to mellow, casting long shadows that reminded her of the previous evening's fear, she made her decision. She would go. The same impulse that had led her to book this solo trip in the first place, the yearning for something authentic, something more, nudged her forward. Getting ready, she only touched up her makeup and felt what she was wearing was comfortable enough for walking through ancient streets. As she made her way back to the quiet piazza, the familiar cobblestones felt different under her feet, charged with the memory of their first meeting. The air was cooler now, carrying the scent of evening blossoms. He was already there when she arrived, standing near the fountain, looking out at the surrounding buildings. He wasn't in his motorcycle gear tonight, but in jeans and casual dark jacket that hinted at the strength beneath. He still had that calm charisma, that quiet intensity, but without the helmet, he seemed slightly less imposing, more approachable. When he saw her, a genuine smile, warmer than the one she'd seen briefly the night before, lit his face. It reached his dark eyes, crinkling the corners. "Isabela," he said, his deep voice a welcome sound in the quiet piazza. "I'm glad you came, Alessandro," she replied, feeling a smile spread across her own face. "I was curious." He chuckled softly, a low, pleasant sound. "Curiosity is a good trait for an architect, I imagine." He gestured with his head. "Come. The view I want to show you is not far." He led her through a labyrinth of narrow streets she hadn't discovered on her own, passages that twisted and turned, opening onto unexpected courtyards and glimpses of ancient walls. It felt like stepping back in time, guided by someone who knew the city's secrets. They emerged onto a small, elevated terrace, seemingly carved out of the side of a hill, offering a breathtaking panoramic view of Rome as the last light of day faded and the city lights began to twinkle below. It was stunning, a vista that felt earned, exclusive. "Wow," Isabela breathed, walking to the edge, taking it all in. "This is incredible. I would never have found this on my own." Alessandro stood beside her, his gaze on the city, but his awareness clearly on her. "Rome reveals itself slowly," he said, "to those who are patient and know where to look." He paused. "Like architecture, perhaps." She turned to him, smiling. "Perhaps, though my buildings usually have blueprints." He turned to her fully then, leaning back against the low stone wall. "Tell me about that," he invited. "Your work, what do you build?" They talked more freely here, the initial awkwardness of their meeting gone, replaced by a comfortable rhythm. Isabela spoke about her passion for architecture, the challenges of bringing a vision to life, the satisfaction of creating spaces that people inhabit. She spoke about feeling a bit lost lately, the routine, the pressure, the sense that she was building structures but perhaps neglecting the foundation of her own life. She admitted that this trip was an attempt to find that spark again. Alessandro listened intently, his dark eyes thoughtful. When she asked about his work, he was still somewhat elusive. He spoke about creating, about bringing something unseen into existence, about the dedication it required. He described his process in terms that were abstract enough to apply to various creative fields, hinting at long hours, intense focus, and a deep connection to his craft, without ever naming it directly. He spoke about the city itself as an inspiration, the layers of history, the interplay of light and shadow, the way beauty could be found in unexpected places, much like this hidden terrace. As they talked, the city lights below became a glittering tapestry. They discovered shared interests in art, in history, in the quiet moments of observation. They found humor in the absurdity of how they met, laughing about the frantic flagging down of his motorcycle. There were moments when their eyes would meet and linger, a silent acknowledgement of the growing attraction between them. A comfortable silence would fall, not awkward, but filled with a shared sense of peace in each other's company. They left the terrace and Alessandro continued to guide her through Rome's unseen corners. They walked down ancient streets where laundry hung from windows overhead, visited a tiny, centuries-old church with breathtaking frescoes that were barely mentioned in guidebooks, and stopped for gelato at a place clearly favored by locals. With Alessandro, Rome felt different, more intimate, more authentic, less like a tourist destination and more like a living, breathing city with secrets to share. Stopping at a small, unpretentious bar for a glass of wine, the conversation became more personal. They talked about family, about dreams, about the paths they had taken. Alessandro made a comment about the weight of certain expectations, the difficulty of balancing personal desires with external pressures. It was a fleeting comment, but the look in his eyes, a flicker of weariness, suggested a deeper story he wasn't telling. It was then, as they were talking, that his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and the relaxed atmosphere instantly shattered. His face tightened, his jaw clenching. He quickly excused himself, stepping a short distance away, speaking rapidly and intensely in Italian in a low voice. From Isabela's perspective, the words were a blur of urgent sounds, but the tone conveyed stress, frustration, and a demanding authority. He ran a hand through his hair, his body language tense. When he returned, he looked visibly strained, though he attempted to regain his composure. "Apologies," he said, his voice still holding a trace of tension. "A family matter?" or rather a business matter for the family. He offered a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Something unavoidable. Isabela saw the shift. The easy charm was momentarily gone, replaced by the look of a man carrying a heavy burden. She was curious, of course, about this mysterious business for the family that could so instantly disrupt his calm, but she also sensed it was a boundary he wasn't ready to cross. She respected his privacy, choosing not to press, though the incident added another layer to the enigma that was Alessandro. They finished their wine, the easy flow of conversation slightly disrupted by the reminder of his complicated life. As the evening drew to a close, walking back towards the more familiar areas of the city, Alessandro expressed his genuine enjoyment of their time together. I haven't shown anyone this part of my world," he admitted, his voice softer now. "These places, this side of myself, in a long time. I enjoyed your company, Isabela. More than I expected." Near her hotel, he stopped. The moment felt significant. He hesitated for a moment, looking at her, a decision playing out in his eyes. "I'd like to show you where I create," he said finally, his voice low. "My studio. It's a private space, but I'd like you to see it, if you're free, tomorrow evening?" The invitation hung in the air, a step further into his hidden world, a reveal of his identity as an artist, but still keeping the full extent of his life veiled. Isabela's heart fluttered, an invitation to his private sanctuary. It was a sign of trust, a desire to share a deeper part of himself with her. The mystery surrounding him was still there, heightened by the tense phone call, but her intrigue and attraction had only grown. "I would like that very much, Alessandro," she replied, a genuine smile returning to her face. "Tomorrow evening it is." The prospect of seeing where he created, of stepping further into his world, filled her with a sense of anticipation that eclipsed any lingering apprehension. The invitation to Alessandro's studio had resonated with Isabela long after they parted ways. It felt like a key, a promise of unlocking another layer of his mystery. An architect's mind is trained to see structure, form, the deliberate intent behind a creation. She was eager to see what Alessandro, the enigmatic man who navigated Rome's hidden paths and spoke with such depth about the city's soul, chose to create within his own private space. All day, the anticipation hummed beneath the surface of her explorations. She wondered about the studio itself. Would it be grand or humble? Would it reflect the quiet intensity she sensed in him, or reveal a wilder, more chaotic side? As evening approached, she followed the simple directions Alessandro had given her. They led her away from the more familiar areas, down streets that grew quieter, the buildings perhaps older, more discreet. The address brought her to a large, unassuming wooden door set into an ancient stone wall. There was no nameplate, no sign, just a small modern buzzer. It felt deliberately hidden, a secret entrance. She pressed the buzzer, a small leap of anticipation in her chest. The door clicked open, and she stepped through into a world that felt instantly removed from the city outside. It was a beautiful, unexpected courtyard, a serene oasis of green and stone, filled with the scent of jasmine and the gentle murmur of a small fountain. The sound of the city traffic faded, replaced by a profound sense of peace and privacy. The building surrounding the courtyard was old, elegant, hinting at a history she couldn't guess. This was clearly a place of significant value, a subtle indicator of means that went beyond a simple artist's garret. Alessandro was waiting for her at the entrance to what looked like a large, ground-floor space opening onto the courtyard. He was dressed casually tonight, but with an ease that spoke of comfort in his own domain. A genuine smile, one that reached his eyes and softened the sharp lines of his face, greeted her. "Welcome, Isabela," he said, his deep voice warm in the quiet space. "To my sanctuary." Stepping inside, Isabela's breath hitched slightly. The studio was vast, filled with natural light streaming in from large windows and skylights, even as dusk gathered outside. It wasn't overtly luxurious, but the sheer scale of the space, the quality of the materials, sturdy easels, large canvases, pots of brushes, tubes of paint in every conceivable color, spoke of serious dedication and resources. The air smelled faintly of turpentine and oil paint, a scent that felt instantly authentic, alive. Canvases leaned against walls, some finished, some clearly works in progress. It was a space dedicated entirely to creation. "It's incredible, Alessandro," she said, walking further in, turning slowly to take it all in. "It's immense." He smiled, a touch of pride in his eyes. "It needs to be," he replied. "Sometimes the ideas take up a lot of room." He gestured around the space. "This is where it happens." He began to show her his work, moving from piece to piece. His paintings were powerful, often large-scale, filled with a vibrant energy that seemed to capture the essence of light, movement, and emotion. There were abstract pieces that swirled with color and texture, and figurative works that captured fleeting moments or intense expressions. As an architect, Isabela was drawn to the structure within his abstracts, the way he built layers of paint, the deliberate lines that anchored the chaos. She commented on his use of light, the way it seemed to emanate from within the canvas, and the emotional depth she felt in his work. Alessandro listened, genuinely pleased by her observations. He explained his process, how he started with a feeling, a color, a line, and let it evolve. He talked about the challenges of translating the intangible into something visible, something real. "It's like building," he said, looking at her.